All right, I hear you. I've made a handful of videos expressing my frustration with Bethesda for certain decisions regarding Starfield, and also my bedevilment when it comes to certain design decisions, such as the lack of in-planet flight, no vehicles, no rovers or anything like that. I find all of that concerning, and I've made videos explaining that. However, I think a lot of people misinterpret me pointing out those things that I find concerning or sort of red flags as me just totally disregarding the game and refusing to acknowledge any of the good. So in this video, I want to go through some of the things that I think, as a proud skeptic, look particularly awesome about Starfield, because there is a lot. I mean, the simplest and most obvious things to point to would be the scope. This is going to be the biggest game BGS has ever made, probably the biggest game that Xbox has ever published themselves, and all told, it looks to be something pretty remarkable. Whether that's for good reasons or bad reasons, it's certainly gonna make some waves. I don't expect this game to come out and just gently float out into the ether and have people go, it was fine. I think this is going to be very polarizing. People are either going to love it or they're going to hate it. And at this point, we've all heard the descriptions. Over 1,000 explorable planets, building your own ship and base, all sorts of companions, storylines that are extremely expansive, a whole new trait system, improved graphics, animation systems, blah blah. We've heard that before. I want to focus in on some more minute things that stood out to me that I haven't heard a lot of people discuss, and you might not have heard much detail about. The first thing I'll call out is this article from the Washington Post from back in June of 2021, where they interviewed Todd Howard about Starfield. And it was in this interview where Todd actually described Starfield as quote unquote Skyrim in space, which I know is like an easy thing to point to. Oh, lol, they said the thing, oh, cringe. But really, that's important, because the last game that this company put out, Bethesda Game Studios, was Fallout 76, which of course was received with mixed reactions. And even the last game that this core team, Bethesda Game Studios Maryland, worked on was Fallout 4, and Fallout 4 had mixed reviews when it came to their narrative as well. There wasn't a lot of consequence. The voiced protagonists meant that there wasn't a lot of variability in decisions and consequences. Line delivery was always very, very stilted and rarely matched with what you expected. There were a lot of problems that came along with it. But instead of going, it's Fallout 4 in space, Todd's jumping all the way to Skyrim in space, and then he follows that up with some descriptors. What he said was, quote, "It's kind of like Skyrim in terms of structure of the game, where you're going to be who you want to be, and then there's different factions that you can join and really carve your own path." And this is markedly different from Fallout 4, which of course was a game that was trying to be much more narrative than it was trying to be a sandbox. Skyrim is great because it is unapologetically a sandbox. It doesn't try to hold your hand. It doesn't try to push you into any sort of decision that you might want to make or not make. It just says, go for it. Do whatever you want, kill main story characters, ignore the main quest, go do something else. Who cares? I mean, I have friends that have played Skyrim at this point for years with all sorts of mods for thousands and thousands of hours who have still never seen the ending credits because they didn't find the main story compelling, but they found everything else very, very compelling. It's wild to me because I'm one of those players that tends to work through the main story first and then do side stuff, but you know what, to each their own. Actually, quick question in the comments, let me know if you're one of those players that like goes and does all of the side stuff before the main story, or if you do main story and then start exploring side stuff. I'm really interested in how that breaks out. So just comment down with like hashtag side stuff so I can just search for that hashtag and I can see what you guys think. So do that, do me a favor. I would appreciate it. Research, right? Now, another great way of telling what a game is going to be is to look at the inspirations, and thankfully enough, Todd Howard has actually explained in detail where most of the inspiration for Starfield came. If you're not familiar, Todd Howard has been wanting to make this game for decades. Basically, since he was a teenager, he wanted to create a game like this, which is another reason I would actually be excited for it. Whenever a visionary of the industry, somebody who, whether you love him or hate him, whether we focus on the many lies he's told and how much of a salesman he is, we have to acknowledge that he is a tremendous game designer and is responsible for some of the most iconic games in the history of this industry. And when he is really excited about a project because he's wanted to work on this forever, I get really excited. It would be like if I found out that Steve Jobs had designed some product before he passed away that he was so excited for, but the technology didn't exist. I would be very interested in that product. So I think that pricks my ears up a little bit. I get very interested when I hear that Todd is really, really passionate about this, especially because the last couple of projects, it didn't seem like he was totally committed to say the very least. But when he described the inspirations for Starfield, he named 2 specific titles in that Washington Post article. The first was Sundog Frozen Legacy, which I actually have some gameplay footage of. This is a video from Scott Manley, who posted this video 10 years ago, but this is what the game actually looks like. It released back in like 1984 on the Apple II and then 1985 on the Atari ST. Like, this thing's been around for a while, and you can see, I mean, it's definitely not cutting edge in terms of graphics or anything, but this is a game Todd played way back in the day, and that started the gears turning of what he would eventually want to be able to make if he eventually was making video games, which of course he ended up doing. And I just find this so cool that you can look at something like this, and then we look at something like this, and we can see how this would have only been like a dream before. The fact that we get games that are like this in scope and scale is just mind-blowing to me. It's pretty amazing, this time that we live in, and we're very fortunate as gamers to be able to get these titles like this so regularly, which is pretty amazing. And again, like, we can point at stuff that's concerning or point at stuff that looks iffy with Starfield or with any game that we're looking at, but let's just take a moment to appreciate just how incredible this is. It's a marvel of technology. It's wild. But going back to Sundog Frozen Legacy, this game is pretty robust, and when paired with the second inspiration he named, which is Traveler, which is an old pen and paper role-playing game that was initially published in 1977, has been updated for years and years and years, is now based on the GURPS system, which you're very familiar with if you've played any sort of role-playing games. And this thing is like, it's intense. This guy, Seth Skorkowski, actually did an 11-part series breaking down how this works. And like, in the pen and paper game, you can build your own ship, and each segment of the ship has different uses, and there's different hit points and weights and then maintenance costs and fuel usages. It's like crazy how intensely detailed this is. And back in the day, this is how you would have to play games like this, but nowadays we just get it all streamlined into a single video game that we can boot up and play on console or mobile or whatever. It's, again, very, very crazy the times we live in, but all of this tells me that Starfield is built on a foundation and an inspiration set that is extremely complex, that is very detail oriented. And as somebody that likes detail in RPGs and games like this, that gets me really excited. And to me, the thing that probably most excites me for Starfield is actually the ship customization. I freaking love this stuff. I love spaceships just in general. I just find them fascinating. And the idea that we can build our own and craft our own with this different modular part system, similar to the base building stuff that they have in Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, that gets me really, really excited and intrigued, especially because, let's be honest, with mods and the stuff that's going to come in endgame support, maybe through DLCs and things like we saw with Fallout 4 and the different kits for expanding the crafting systems they had there, this is only the beginning, and there's going to be some madness that will come into play when it comes to ship customization. I'm thrilled for this. I don't see a ton of other people just like super stoked for it. I think it looks awesome though, and I can't wait to start experimenting with it. And in the gameplay overview at the Starfield Direct, they showed some of the variability. I mean, you can make tiny ships that are built for speed and quick exploration. You can build other huge freighters that are meant to transport large amounts of cargo, or you can have ships that are mainly built around offensive maneuvers if you want to be like a space pirate and just take down enemy ships and loot them or whatever. The fact that there's so much variability gets me really, really excited. And if any part of this game has me quote unquote hyped, even though hype makes you stupid, check it out at lukestevenstv.com. I think this could be the part of the game that actually gets me hyped. This is just something that's really, really compelling to me. And I was trying to think of why, and I actually like sat down and I really processed. I was like, why am I so into this ship customization thing? And then I realized it's because the games I grew up playing were like this. Do you guys remember this? It's like old school robot arena games from like 2003. I played the ever-living crap out of this. This is a video from First Plays HD, and somehow he got it working in like 16:9. I don't even know how, but I remember building robots like this, and it had like robot metallic deformation. So if you took hits, the metal would dent in, and then you also can attack robots and go through the whole championship. It was just awesome. You could craft whatever robots you wanted to. And I think this game is actually why I'm so intrigued by the ship customization. But you know what, if you're looking at this and like, what, you enjoyed that game, Luke? What are you talking about? I'm just being real with you guys. I loved that game and I played the crap out of it back in the day. Now, another thing that has me generally interested is the trait system. Initially, I kind of dismissed this because I was like, okay, well, sure, more traits and skills. It's just more of the same. But I actually dug in a little bit deeper and was impressed with what I found. You see, when you build your character at the start of the game, you can select up to 3 different traits. These are completely optional and you don't have to select any if you don't want to, as each comes with an advantage and a disadvantage. There's no easy boosts here for extra skill points or XP boosts or anything like that. Every single one of these traits gives you something and takes something. Again, as far as RPGs are concerned, I'm into this. Have consequence, have ups and downs. Not everything should be up, not everything should be down. There's got to be balance to create that contrast, to create a little bit of conflict in the gameplay. And so this gets me interested. Okay, tell me more. And from the traits that we've seen, there's actually a good amount of variety here. There's this article from PC Gamer that actually went through a bunch of the gameplay footage and collected the different traits that they showed while like quickly tabbing through with right bumper different menus to see, oh, well, they said this, and if we freeze that frame, we can see this. So this is collected by them. Shout out to PC Gamer. But you can see there's a lot here. Alien DNA is one of them. You volunteered for a controversial experiment that combines alien and human DNA. As a result, you start with higher health pool and greater endurance, but healing items aren't as effective. Interesting. Also interesting is by combining human and alien DNA, that to me suggests there will be aliens in the game, but they haven't shown them yet, perhaps for like story reasons. So for everybody that's like, no aliens in the game whatsoever, for one, I'm not too worried about that. Not every game needs to be Mass Effect, but secondly, it seems as though there might actually be aliens in the game, but I don't know, that might just be reading into it. Another one is Dream Home. You own a luxurious, customizable house on a peaceful planet. Unfortunately, it comes with a 50,000 credit mortgage with Gal Bank that has to be paid weekly. And there's actually a few of these where there's weekly or daily costs associated with different things. So it makes me wonder, are there going to be certain things in the game that you can like finance? Because for example, this is basically just a financed house. You own a luxurious house on a peaceful planet and it comes with a 50,000 credit mortgage that has to be paid weekly. Otherwise, presumably you lose access to the house and it goes away. So you have to keep paying every single in-game week to avoid losing it. So can you buy like big ships or stuff with weekly costs associated with it? I don't know. Emphasis on I don't know, okay guys? Don't come at me being like, Luke said that there would be financing in the game for big purchases. No, this is speculative nonsense, okay? Real quick, I think everybody just needs to be clear on this. I'm okay with like speculation as long as it's clear that that's what's happening. If I say, hey, this is speculative nonsense, I wonder if there could be financing for big purchases because it seems like they have that in the game for other things. I think it's fair speculation. Maybe it's in the game, maybe it's not. I won't be bummed either way. I think it would be cool, but no love lost. You know, I won't care that much. However, I do see a good number of people that just assert things, that just make stuff up and then act as though that's just as warranted or justified as something that's inferred through gameplay or other reveals. A great example is I saw a guy on Twitter that was saying in Grand Theft Auto 6, you can have children out of wedlock and then you have to pay alimony and child support. Like, no, you just made that up. I don't think that's in the game. You're just lying and making stuff up and pretending like that's going to be a cool new feature, which I mean, also, can we just appreciate how dumb the idea of, oh yeah, child support, it's not a bug, it's a feature. We're adding that for the sake of immersion, I guess. Like, can you imagine? Honestly, now that I've said that, they probably should add it. I would actually get a kick out of that if they added alimony and child support as a like negative payout of screwing up in the game in a mission, like where you need to go and get your kid to school, but you don't, and so she leaves you, and then you have to pay child support. It could be interesting. You know what? I sold myself on it. Oh, that was a roller coaster. Anyway, the point is, if you're going to speculate, just be clear that it's speculation and it's just kind of spitballing ideas, and it's all in good fun, but don't let it hype you up, because again, hype makes you stupid. LukeStevensTV.com if you want to cop one for yourself. They're very comfy. I don't actually make very much money on these shirts because I wanted to use the really nice fabric for the shirts because I like soft clothes. So probably not the most savvy business decision I could have made. But honestly, if you want a nice shirt that you'll be proud wearing, check it out. LukeStevensTV.com for a hype makes you stupid shirt. Other traits that have been spotted are something like this one, raised enlightened or raised universal. And basically these are just traits that define whether or not you were raised in one of the in-game religions, and if you were, you get certain perks over here with this religious group, but you are totally shunned by the other, and vice versa. Could be really interesting and lead to some interesting narrative developments for sure. Or this one was really weird, kid stuff. Your parents are alive and well, and you can visit them at their home on some planet, but you will automatically send 2% of your credits home to them every week. Again, remember, like weekly payments and things? This is another one that they have just in the trait system, where every single week in game, you'll lose 2% of your income to send it off to your parents to support them, which is, it's just kind of funny. And before anybody asks, apparently you can actually get rid of traits once they've been established. As we said before, with like having the ultra luxurious mansion, presumably you could just stop paying for it and then you would lose it, I would assume is how that works. Or with your parents, if something were to theoretically happen to them in the game, you would not have parents to visit anymore, and therefore no reason to pay them 2% every single week. But Todd Howard in a couple of interviews also described that you're going to have different missions and quests associated with each given trait that will help you dispel them later in the game if you choose. So even a trait like being a member of a particular in-game religion could be shed by the player later in the game, presumably by, I guess, acting in rebellion against that religious group, or by pissing them off somehow, or just disavowing that religious organization or something. Either way, it seems like there's a way out of this if you end up not liking how it plays out. But do you see what I mean? The trait system is not just a basic skill system where, oh, you get +1 in strength, and this skill gives you added endurance so you can run longer. It presents an actual consequential difference for the player, which is all RPGs should really be trying to do most of the time. They should be trying to give you something to justify a different path to be taken. They should try to make it so every path feels a little bit different. So some people come along and they're like, ooh, I want to go to the left. And then other people are like, I'm going to go straight. Other people are like, I'm turning around and I'm going to find a different route. You should embrace that. And the way you create that environment in an RPG, especially a sandbox game like this, is by just giving players a ton of different aspects and ways of approaching situations, such as having different burdens on them, such as having to pay out weekly with credits for some object that you might not like or you might love, who knows, or being associated with a certain in-game religion, or having ties to different groups, or having the adoring fan. If you let this guy come along with you, he will join your crew, he will give you gifts, but he will also endlessly annoy you until you decide to take matters into your own hands. And listen, there's a lot of other things that we could point to as well. Other things that I think look pretty remarkable about Starfield that other people have been droning on about for weeks and weeks on end. But my overarching opinion is that I think Starfield looks really intriguing and interesting. It has me captivated. I'm watching it and I'm excited to try it. but I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm hyped, because again, I'm a firm believer that hype makes you stupid. So I try not to ever get to that point with anything, because hype basically primes you to be disappointed. And I've been disappointed by many games that I've gotten hyped for in the past. So I just try to avoid that. You can still be excited, you can still be intrigued, you can still be captivated, whatever word you want to use, but you want to try to avoid hype where you're just getting like so stoked up on it that you can't calm down and it's all you're thinking about. That in any situation in life is probably unhealthy. And while there's many things that we can point to as reasons for concern, or at the very least reasons to lower that hype so that we don't become sycophantic and crazy with foam coming out of our mouths, I think it's also okay to appreciate interesting things and compelling things that have been presented. I still am not personally willing to give Bethesda Game Studios the benefit of the doubt, because what they did last time with Fallout 76 was borderline criminal. I don't know why so many people are willing to just forgive them for that. It's baffling to me. Todd Howard, the whole meme around him is that he tells sweet little lies. Everybody's seen that Krabby Cat video because it's awesome and because it so succinctly shows how Todd regularly lies to people when he's trying to sell his games. Whether it's because it's like a conscious decision to deceive people, or if it's just that he gets so hyped up about his own project that he just starts to kind of fudge the truth a little bit, I don't know, and I won't pretend to know, but the effect is clear that he presents the game in one way and then the game ends up being something totally different. Think I'm exaggerating? Todd Howard in March of 2008 described Fallout 3 as having over 200 endings. Oh, maybe that's a quote mine. Maybe he didn't actually say that. Quote, "Being that we are Bethesda, everything gets a bit big. So as of last week, we're over 200 endings." Maybe that's an exaggeration, Luke. Quote, "That is not an exaggeration," but it deserves some descriptions. Like, come on, man. And I mean, they go on to describe how it's like a combination of sub endings and other consequences, like whether you blew up Megaton, that I guess would be its own unique ending or variation. So if you got ending A with Megaton, that's a different ending than if you got ending A without Megaton still standing. So then you can kind of twist it and alter the math where it's over 200. But again, Todd Howard's not a dumb guy. He knows what he's saying. He knows that people hear over 200 endings and have a certain understanding of what that means. He's playing on that frilly, kind of squishy language to get you excited, to get you hyped, to get you to pre-order the game, to get you to buy the game and play it. That's fine for a salesperson to do. It's understandable. Clearly people like it because they're so willing to just look the other way. But what we try to do on this channel, and what I try to do day in, day out, is to look at things a little bit more critically and to not just give the benefit of the doubt to multimillionaires who are trying to sell you on buying a product when the last thing they put out was criminally terrible. But all said, I'm really excited for Starfield. I think it's going to be compelling either which way, whether it's compelling in its lack of ability to live up to the hype, or if it's compelling because it somehow managed to live up to the hype. I cannot wait. And I would bet that you guys are also quite intrigued if you are still watching this video. So if you're interested in more Starfield coverage that is not just going to hype you up for the sake of easy clicks, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and share this with a friend who needs to be talked off the ledge a little bit when it comes to the hype. I would be happy to take on that burden for you. But with that, thank you for watching. I love you guys so, so much. Thanks for making my dreams a reality. This is like actually a dream come true. Never think I'd take it for granted. I really do appreciate you watching. Until the next one, hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.